Hey, thanks so much for listening and welcome to part 2 of the topic, learning how to let go of control, also known as surrender. And I'm so sorry I left you hanging in the last episode, but I want to keep these short and sweet because I know we're busy. The way that I think about these episodes is like you could listen to them during your commute to work. That's what I feel like. And I hope for you that your commute to work isn't more than 25 minutes or 30 minutes. Sometimes I go over, let's be honest, I'm a talker. Sometimes I go closer to 35 minutes, or during a walk or something like that, because I know we're busy. So I'm just going to jump right in from where we left off in the last episode, which was part 1 of this topic. And I'm so excited to start with one of my very favorite philosophies. And I don't know where this philosophy originated. From when I Googled it, its origins are Buddhist. I don't consider myself to be a Buddhist. I just really love this philosophy. And it has genuinely and truly changed my life. And the philosophy is called HILA, HILA, high intention, low attachment. And let's talk all about what that means. And then we're going to apply it to a bunch of examples of things we try to control in life that we really don't have control over. So I'm excited about that too. So it's actually quite simple in concept. It simply means live your life with the highest and best intentions in everything you do. Go into everything you do with the highest and best of intentions, meaning work hard, try hard, play hard, control what you can. Last episode, we talked about the list of things we can control, right? And then low attachment is letting go of the outcome, accepting, surrendering that after you've done the best you can and you've done the thing with your best and highest intentions, you literally have zero control of the outcome. That's all you can do is your best. All you can do is approach something in the best way you know how. And guess what? Sometimes that's going to suck. Sometimes your best is going to suck because you're new at it or you're afraid or you let yourself get all up in your head and you mess something up. Like sometimes your highest and best intentions are going to leave you flat on your face, apologizing to somebody, cleaning up your own mess, but you're going to learn from it. You're going to learn. And it's the only way in life that we learn and grow and find success is by being willing to take risks that might cause you to fall on your face and have to apologize to somebody or learn a hard lesson that will help you ultimately grow. It is this letting go of the attachment of the outcome that can truly, truly change your life. It shifts you out of victim mentality and into this beautiful feminine energy side of you that you probably need to balance out because you're probably living way over here on the masculine side in most of your life with parenting and work and your relationship and all these things because you're trying to control everything and planning and fixing and strategizing and all that. And by the way, those all, as I said in the last episode, those all have their place. Those are all good sometimes, but we tend to live our whole lives over on that side of the spectrum. So we need to let go and detach. We need to detach our happiness or our safety or our well-being with all these things that are completely and utterly out of our control. The only thing we can control is how we approach them and our actions and our thoughts and beliefs and intentions and reactions, right? The things we talked about in the last episode. So high intention, low attachment. I listened to a podcast once and the guest, I think it was The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. I love that podcast, by the way. If you don't listen to it, definitely check it out. And he had a guest on, and I don't actually even remember the guest's name. It was a man who is a very well-known and well-respected coach of Olympic athletes and professional musicians, right? Interesting combination of people that he coaches. And he was talking about the way that they approach things, and it was exactly, he didn't use this term HILA, high intention, low attachment, but it was exactly HILA that he was describing. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And this is what this is all about. And he was talking about how he approaches leading up to an event. So if it's the Olympics with an Olympic athlete, or if it's one of the common things with his musician is an audition that they get most stressed about if they're trying to audition for some big, like being a part of a symphony or getting a part, just a big part that they're nervous and stressed about and they have a lot riding on it. So he was talking about how leading up to that audition, right? They're going to do every single thing that's in their control to get the outcome that they want. So if that's the athlete, they're going to have a very rigid training schedule, a nutrition program, and all of those things that lead up to that. And they're going to go for hours and hours a day and have rest when they need to and follow a very rigorous thing that's all within their control. They absolutely have control over all of that. Now, they don't have control if they get an injury, right? There are components of it that are out of their control, but they're going to go in with their highest and best intentions and stick to that training plan the best they can. And that's what he's going to coach them through. And the same thing with the musician, right? They're going to have a practice schedule. It's important for musicians to have good nutrition and rest and practice for hours and hours and hours a day and take care of their hands if they use their hands to play their instrument, all those things similar to an athlete in a lot of ways. And what I thought was so cool was he said after they get to the peak training point leading up to their event, and in some cases that's like the day before, depending on if it's a musician or an athlete or who the person is and what they're doing. Some cases it's the week before if they're going to taper, that sort of thing. But once they get to that point, he literally tells them to go and listen to their favorite music the day before, watch a funny show, their favorite movie, do something that has absolutely nothing to do with the event, because at that moment, the control is no longer theirs. They no longer have control over what happens at that event. They have done everything they can within their body to let their body take over and take control. And whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So either they're going to do everything perfectly and they're going to be better than everyone around them and they're going to win or get the spot that they were going to, or they're going to literally fall on their face. If it's an athlete, who falls, you can't control a fall during the race. You have zero control over that, especially if somebody else, bumps into you, trips you, that sort of thing. You have zero control at that moment. And you could even get into a car accident on the way to the audition if you're a musician, or you could, your fingers could mess up the note. He was just talking so deeply about how once you have done everything that you can, it is literally out of your control. And because it's out of your control, I want you to stop thinking about it. Do not let your control brain get in the way, because then you're more likely to F it up. And that's what we need to do here. We need to get out of our way, stop clenching our fists so tightly to that attachment, that thing that we want. I talked about that in the last episode. We need to let go and release so we're not likely to get in our own way, because we don't have control at that point. All right. So let's jump in and talk through the list of things that we cannot control. Last episode, we talked about what we can. These are the things we cannot control. And when I start this page in my program, there are pages, that you look at. And this page, I literally started as everything else, meaning, there's the list of things we can control, and then the things we can't control, everything else. So we control almost nothing besides those things. And let's just rattle them off as a reminder, because it's been a couple of weeks since you heard them. Our thoughts, our boundaries, focusing on our feel-good non-negotiables, our words, our reaction, our mindset, our values and beliefs, what information we allow into our brains, asking for help, our goals, being present. Those are just a few of the things we can control, right? Those are all within us. They are all the things that we choose in our brains, and we control our reactions and what comes out of our mouths. And, we talked about our thoughts, that we can't always control what thoughts come in, but we absolutely have control over how we choose to let those thoughts spiral within our brains. Outside of that, we cannot control anything. We literally have control over nothing outside of that. Even if you're good at controlling things, which I am. I mentioned in the last episode, I have gone my entire life being really good at getting the outcomes I want and having control over the outcomes I want. And we all know I wasn't really controlling things. I was just working super hard and stressing myself out and getting myself into burnout to make sure certain things happened. But I do have, there are a few moments in my life that stand out to where, because remember we said sometimes this can come as an advantage. And the problem with this is when we are good at controlling things, we get praise for them. We get accolades in our society for controlling things. It's considered to be a good and beneficial skill. And let me give you an example. Years ago, this was before I had kids, and Sam is almost 14, so maybe 15, 16 years ago. I went on a trip to Yosemite with my husband's family. And while we were gone, we didn't have any cell service because we were staying in the park. My husband's grandfather, his dad's father, passed away. And we didn't know because we were out of cell service. And when we got back into cell service on our drive back into the airport, they immediately got a hold of us and told us, and the funeral was going to be the next morning. Like we just weren't in cell service, so we didn't know. And it was going to be, we were in Yosemite in California, and it was going to be in, I believe in North Carolina. And I can remember that my father-in-law was, you could tell he was just distraught that he was going to miss his father's funeral. He wasn't going to get, he thought, he had sort of surrendered and thought that there was no way he could get there. I knew, because I had done quite a bit of travel for work and work in American Express and know quite a bit about the travel industry, that not only could he still probably get on a flight, but he could probably get a discount for bereavement, because I don't even know if they still do that, but they definitely did that back then. And we were literally in the airport because we were driving to the airport when we got the news, and we were waiting to fly home to Salt Lake. And I was able to get him a ticket on a plane to go to North Carolina and see and get to the funeral. And he thought he was going to miss his father's funeral. And so that is where control comes in handy. And that was great. And that was wonderful. And I was happy to be able to help. The problem is, though, you get praised and you get a little like cocky. I don't know the word to use. That's probably the wrong word. But then you think you really can control things, and then that leads you to burnout mode because you try to control everything once you have these successes and you get praised for it. And I'm not saying if you have a skill, don't use it to help somebody else. Absolutely use it to help somebody else. Just remember that you don't need to control everything, and you can sit back and relax into that feminine energy and just let things happen and go with the flow more and let what will be. And it's very scary and very difficult to do that. So I do not want to minimize how much easier said than done that is. But if you take the scary leap to do it, it will change your life and it will feel amazing. Okay. So now let's dive into what we can't control. We can't control what others think about us. Now, for all my fellow recovering people pleasers out there, you might think you can. Like, I'm pretty good at getting people to like me. But the reality is there are always going to be people out there who I am too much for. And I'm a lot. So it's probably way more people than I think. And that stresses me out, just even thinking there are a bunch of people out there who don't like me. But the truth is there just are. And when they don't like me, it's for their own reasons, right? It's for their own whatever's going on inside them. Because there are certainly people in this world that bother me. Working on that, that's part of, letting go of a lot of things. But still, there are always going to be people who trigger things within me that end up bothering me. We cannot control what others think about us. And I like what my therapist says. It is also none of our business. It is absolutely none of our business what others think of us. And we should not be trying to control what others think of us. We cannot control our body size. Ooh, this one is controversial. We cannot control our body size. Okay, so maybe you just thought, what is she talking about? Of course we can. Of course we can. Just get in a calorie deficit, exercise more. You could starve yourself and you're going to control what your body size is. Well, that's true. That is true. That's factual. If you starve yourself, your body will change. It will look different. Or if you exercise around the clock, the way your body looks will look different. And technically you do have control over that, over those actions that you're going to take. However, I promise you that if you are pushing your body to a point that is going against its genetics, that is not going to be sustainable. That is going to be likened to trying to control everything in your life, low grade, underlying misery and stress constantly. And you're going to feel like you're in a rut and your whole life is going to be focused on it. And the reality is you just don't have control over your body size. It's genetics. It's genetics. Now, a bunch of you are going to pick out the extreme cases of like, well, what about somebody who's like on my 600-pound life, right? That's not genetics. Well, first of all, that is a minuscule percentage of the population. Second, that is it's different than controlling your body size. They are relying on food to bury something that has happened in their lives. And it's just a totally different scenario and situation. So please stop clinging to that. The reality is your genetics determine your body size. And what you really need to do is shift your focus away from your body size and the way it looks over to true health, to actual health, because the reality is, and I've talked about this multiple times in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go deep in it here, but our health and the way our body looks or the size of our body are not linked in the way the diet and fitness industry would have us believe. They are just not. There's a book called Health at Every Size that you can read that shows all the science that proves this. The reason that we think the way our body looks and our weight and our body size is linked to our health is because there is a $200 billion industry out there making money off of you trying to change your body size. And the reality is, I said it before, but I'll say it again because it's important. Fitness models are fitness models for two reasons. Number one, genetically, it's a lot easier for their body to look like that than it is for yours. Or number two, they have disordered eating and are forcing their bodies to look like that because of whatever issue they have going on in their head, and they are not healthy and they are not happy. I personally think it's more the former, where their genetics make it easier for their body to look like that. And by the way, I'm not saying they don't work hard. I'm not saying they don't work hard. They work hard. However, you could go live, if you're not one of those people who has the genetics that's naturally more lean and muscular, you could go live with one of those fitness models and you could literally mirror her actions. You could eat everything she eats. You could move every time she moves. And number one, your body wouldn't look like hers. And number two, you'd be miserable and hangry and no one would want to be around you because you'd just be in a bad mood all the time. But here's what's cool. It doesn't matter, because you don't need to look like a fitness model to be healthy. And you actually have very little control over your body size. And that's why yo-yo diets happen. Because we go on a diet and we lose some weight and we think we have control of our body size, but then we don't. And so our body then goes back into, it wants to get back to its normal size, to its normal weight. And a lot of times the stress involved in that cycle, we eat more to bury the stress and we gain more than where we started. So huge and life-changing to let go of the control of your body size or the way your body looks and focus on what you can control, which are healthy habits. And once you do those healthy habits consistently, you may lose some weight, some pounds may fall off, and they may not. Because maybe you could be perfectly healthy in your body's current size, okay? So that's a big, huge, important one. You cannot control the actions and behavior of others. You cannot control death. When you die, when the others around you die. You cannot control the safety or health of your loved ones. I think this is really, really important because our world is very scary right now with all of the shootings that happen. And number one, we have none to very little control. I do think surrendering here doesn't necessarily look like just giving up and not taking action. I do think there are actions that we can talk about and push for, common sense gun laws and things like that. And I'm not going to go deep into that here. There are actions that we can take that are in our control. What unhealthy mind me wanted to do after the Sandy Hook shooting, which was the first one that I can remember in my life that rocked my world because my kids were young and same age as those kids, is I considered homeschooling my kids. And while I have absolutely nothing negative or wrong to say with homeschooling, I know that I would have been miserable homeschooling my children. I just would have been miserable. I would have had to leave my job. I just know that I'm not cut out for that. And I would have been miserable doing that. And that is the form of control that is unhealthy for us, right? Where we think we can control everything, but it is at the detriment to our quality of life. It's a perfect example. And so for me, surrender looked like, I even called the school and I was like, what security measures are you putting in place and this and that, and tried to control what the school was going to do. And that can even range over on the side of unhealthy, right? I mean, unless I run for school board and actually have control and have a say, which I could choose to do, but let's be honest, I'm not going to do that with 2 little kids and a super busy full-time job, right? That wasn't part of my life. I could choose that, but it wasn't realistic. It's not what I wanted in my life at that point. Let's put it that way. I didn't choose it because I didn't want that in my life. And so surrender for me looked like sending my kids to school anyway, and just knowing that I cannot control that. I don't have control over that. And talk about a scary one to get over in the feminine energy on, right? That is a scary one that really, really hits home. And we can't control it. and we have to keep living our lives. We have to keep living our lives. If we stop living our lives because of the crazies out there, and not just the crazy, well, I personally consider part of the crazies to be, the folks who are running the NRA and benefiting from all the money there. We can't, they win if we stop living our lives. And so it's a huge example that relates to parenting and being a mom, that we have to surrender and let go of control. We can take some action. Like I said, we can take some action. We can donate to certain causes. We can go to protest. I really do think change in that regard does start within each one of us. But at the end of the day, we have a little bit of control, and recognizing it and surrendering is going to lead to a happier, healthier life for everybody involved. We cannot control our spouse. This is massive. This is huge. For years, I tried to force Mike to go to therapy. I remember reading this book called Women Who Love Too Much. Changed my life, actually. If you're going to read it, if you're struggling in your marriage and you're doing too much in your marriage, I want to give you a warning that it is mostly focused on abusive spouses, and Mike is a wonderful person and was never abusive. However, I did way too much. I was a woman who loved too much and did too much and was people-pleasing constantly. And I remember reading in this book that if you have made a therapy appointment for your spouse, you are trying to control your spouse, and you are trying to change them, and you are trying to make them change for you. And that is not going to work. You can't make another person change for you. You can't make another person go to therapy. The reality is you can't make your spouse do anything. And the more you try, the more it's going to push him away and cause disconnect in your relationship. What you can control is having boundaries, standing up for your wants and your needs, and not letting him win every single time or get what he wants every single time at the expense of what you want. And that is scary. And we talked about it in the relationship episode. So I'm not going to dive into it fully here, but you are worth it. You are worth standing up for what you need and what you want and voicing it and being dramatic if needed. That's part of the reason that we don't stand up for what we want with our spouses, is because we're too afraid to come across as the drama wife or the crazy woman, or, all these things society labels us. When really the reality is society has taught us as women that our value and worth come from the way we look and how we serve all those around us. And it has taught men that their value and their worth comes from chasing their dreams and chasing their passions. And it's okay to upset somebody that gets in the way of that because you're worth it. And we need to be more like dudes here. You are worth it. And it is okay to upset him, to chase your dreams and share your message and follow your heart and get what you need and do what you want and take me time. It is okay to upset him in order to do that. And you're not going to use mean or awful words. You're just going to say, this is what I need and this is what I want. And if you don't get it, you might have to leave that relationship, right? And that's a whole nother conversation for a different day. I'm not saying you have to leave, but you might. And having your mind open to that is a game changer. So anyway, if you're struggling with this, message me. I'm so passionate about it. It is so real and it exists, but you cannot control your spouse. You can't change him. You cannot control him. If he's going to change, he has to want to change. You cannot control the outcome of your efforts. This is HILA, high intention, low attachment. You can put in all the work in the world with the best and highest of intentions, and you have no control over the outcome. So whether that's a promotion, whether that's the children you're raising, whether that's your marriage, whether it's even smaller things like, I don't know, we can put in a lot of effort and a lot of work on things that, maybe might feel a little bit more silly, like the perfect kid party or making your house look a certain way, and the reality is, like, a lot of us don't have time to do those things. And then we try and we try and we try and they don't come out right. And we think we're bad moms. And, it's just so common. All you can do is put in the effort. And you have to keep in mind your own boundaries and your own health. And when I say health, I mean all the healths: spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, all the healths. When we're putting in the effort, we have to put in the effort while protecting our own health. Because there is such thing as putting in too much effort, right? Especially when you're clinging and attached to the outcome. You can put in way too much effort and that energy pushes away what you want, right? So we want to put in effort, let it feel good. It gets to feel good. Your life gets to feel good. Your job gets to feel good. Promotion is one of the most common things here, the outcome of efforts, right? You can be the highest performer on your team. You can be told you're ready for the next level, and you can not get job after job after job. And that can really, really lead to a spiral into victim mindset. We're going to talk about this in the career development episodes as well. And victim mindset is not where you want to be when you're applying for new jobs, because it just sticks out like a sore thumb. Somebody with desperate and victim energy, that's not who leaders want on their team. And even if that's not who you are, if you're clinging so hard to that promotion because you know you're ready and you know you do a better job than everybody else around you, and you feel like your skills haven't been seen, you're going to come across as a victim because you're too attached. You're too attached. And you might be thinking, well, what if I really need the money? Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. I care about you. I care that you need the money. But it doesn't matter, because you're not going to get the raise or the money if you have that kind of energy. And maybe you need to look at leaving your company, or maybe you need to look at a whole different group, or maybe you need to look at taking a lateral move into a different area where your skills will be valued and seen, right? There are alternatives to this desperate energy, and you're much more likely to see open doors if you let go of the fists, the tight fist and clenching and the attachment to the outcome, because you have no control over the outcome. You have no control. It is somebody else's decision, and you don't know why they're making it, right? Okay. Can you tell I'm passionate about this? You have no control over the socio-political climate of our country or the world. We know that has been very, very hard the last few years. Let's caveat that. You do have some control, and you can take action in small ways, or you can run for office and have big control, right? Which would be amazing. I love that. If that's what you want for your life, if that's what you want, if you can sustain that and live a happy life that way, amazing. I kind of would love to do that in a few years when my kids are older, because I really do want to take action here. But right now in my life, it's not what's right for protecting my health. And therefore, the only ways I can control it are things like donations, protests, sharing on my social media, things like that. And so I do in little ways, but I need to remember that I can't cling to fixing it, because I can't overall control it. And that's really, really important, because that clinging to fixing it causes so much stress that it can be legit detrimental to your health. And it is not worth risking your health for these things. You can't control what's going to happen. You can't control, I love this one, you can't control how it will go, it in air quotes, because it could mean anything. So it's kind of like you can't control the outcome of your efforts. Whatever it is, you really can't control how it will go. All you can do is HILA. You can go in and prepare with your highest and best intentions, do the best job you can, and after that, you have no control. We can't control how our children will be treated by their friends. We can control how we react in those scenarios, though, right? We can control whether we're a helicopter parent or not, whether we work things out or it rises to the level of involving other parents, those types of things. We can't control our children's behavior. Let's talk about HILA as it relates to this. So our highest and best intentions with controlling our children's behavior would look like disciplining them, or having a routine for them, or, making sure they're getting enough sleep and those types of things. Like, there are actions and steps we can take, but after we've done that and provided them with love and shelter, food and water, we have no control after that. We don't get to control that. That's all we can control. And that's a tough one. But trying to control it is going to cause a lot more harm than good. I promise you that. And so we have to learn to let go of that and realize that our children's behavior is not a reflection of us or who we are. And some people out there do judge. They do judge parents based on children's behavior. In my experience, those are people who've never had children usually, or they're people who are really insecure about their own parenting, is what I found. So that's a really important one. We cannot control time, and time's going to pass anyway. So be very mindful of how you're spending yours. Is it aligned with your values? You can control that, and it's going to pass anyway, right? But you can't control it. You cannot control the family you were born into. All you can do is learn from that. You cannot control terrorists or bad people. We talked about that before. You cannot control traffic or delayed flights. This is a big one, right? This one's huge. When we are trying to make a flight or trying to get somewhere on time and we hit traffic and we're going to be late, our bodies go into fight or flight mode because, oh no, this person's not going to like me because I'm late. I can't believe I'm late. It's so rude. Or I'm going to miss my flight. Oh my gosh, fight or flight. I'm going to die. I'm not going to get there on time. And when our bodies fill with cortisol and adrenaline like that, it is so unhealthy for us because we don't have a way to release it like we did back in the cave person days where you would sprint, right? Or fight. You would actually fight or flight. That releases those chemicals. Well, they just build up in us. So I really have worked on this because I hate being late. That if it is out of my control, a circumstance out of my control, even if I left a little early and I'm still going to be late, or even if I didn't leave early enough, it's a mistake. I fell on my face. I'm going to learn from it. I have really gotten good at having awareness of when the cortisol and the adrenaline starts to boil up in me, my heart starts to race and I start sweating, to say, no, we're not going to die. Our value and worth isn't based on being on time to this thing. We might disappoint somebody and that's okay. We're just going to breathe and we're just going to drive carefully and not get into an accident because, we're freaking out, and we're just going to breathe and we'll apologize when we get there, right? That type of awareness is life-changing, okay? And then making mistakes. The last thing, you cannot control whether or not you mess up or you make a mistake. You can have HILA, you can prep with the best and highest of intentions, but after that, you cannot control what's going to happen, what's going to trigger you, what's going to trip you up, what question is going to stump you and make your face go red and make your armpits sweat in the presentation, right? You cannot control anything after you've approached it with your highest and best intentions, and you're going to make mistakes. And it is the only way to grow and the only way to learn. And yes, it's terrifying. Yes, it is completely and utterly terrifying. And you are worth it. You have enough value and worth to make mistakes, and you might upset somebody or disappoint somebody. And if they choose to totally write you off for that, they were not meant to be in your life. But most people won't, and they'll still love you and care about you and value you, and they will forgive you for your mistakes, and you will learn and grow from them. So I love ending on, you are allowed to make mistakes. Okay. Wow, there we are. We went over 30 minutes already. Hopefully this resonated with you. Please, like I always say, feel free to message me. Please share this podcast with anyone you think could benefit from it. My whole goal with this is impact. Reach the most women that I can, right? Little by little, work on changing the world, because I can't control overall how hard the world is on women, right? But I can control whoever I can sort of help and reach. And I can control that I'm sharing this message. That's what I can control, that I'm sharing this message, HILA, my highest and best intentions of changing the world and the way society views women and where we think our value and our worth come from, is by sharing this message, by speaking, by signing up to do a podcast, speaking into this microphone. I can control that. And so I would love for you to help me spread that message. So please share with anyone you think can benefit it. And as always, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening to the Working Mom Happiness Method. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from listening. For show notes or to enroll in the Working Mom Happiness Method coaching courses, visit www.womensbestlifeuniversity.com.